Our Bradyologist, Jeff Darlington, with us this morning. I see you created waves. You know you did when you said, from what you're hearing, you'd be stunned if Tom Brady returned to the Patriots. So what is the market for Brady, Jeff, outside of Foxborough?
Well, I'd say the market's pretty flush. Now, I need to qualify that by pointing out that varying levels of interest right now. I've spoken to executives with 8 different teams that are at least monitoring Tom Brady's free agency. Now, 4 of those teams would sign him right now. Let me be very clear, though. That doesn't mean that Tom Brady would be interested in those teams. And that is where we're at right now. And that's what's so interesting about the next couple of weeks. You've got teams on one side of this thing that are really looking in, diving in to decide exactly what they want to do at that quarterback spot and how they want to approach potentially signing Brady. And then you have Brady himself doing his homework on the peripheral. Not until after all of that gets decided, and on March 16th they can begin to talk, March 18th the signing can occur, can they figure out where the marriage exists? And that's what's especially important here. While we do say that I've spoken to 8 teams that are monitoring it, those are very varying levels of interest. So that's what's so fascinating about the next few weeks as we try to narrow down exactly what team that would be.
Yeah, who wants Brady and where does Brady want to go? If there's an intersection there, it could happen. Another quarterback in the news, Tua Tagovailoa. Washington with the 2nd pick in the draft. Of course, they took a quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, in the 1st round last year. So how seriously are the Redskins considering taking Tua at 2?
Well, Ron Rivera, one of the most honest coaches in the league, quite honestly. And when he says that he's considering Tua, I think we need to be very specific here that he is trying to make sure that he has no surprises when it comes to the draft. Now, the point here is that there's no card being ready to be turned in that has Chase Young's name on it at this point. What, in my conversations with Redskins officials, the way it's been portrayed to me is that, look, we want to see how healthy Tua is. We want to understand exactly where he's at. And if this is a guy who is considered to us to be a generational quarterback, yes, we're going to consider taking him with the 2nd pick. But hey, look, I understand this is also a time when it's tough to believe anything. Smoke screens are put into place for a reason. I would just say that it's at least worth monitoring as we head more toward draft season here.
And if you're wondering, has a team ever taken quarterbacks in the 1st round in consecutive years? Happened just last April when Arizona grabbed Kyler Murray, number 1 overall, after taking Josh Rosen in the 1st round the year before. Jeff Darlington getting us filled in on all things. Joe Burrow, the projected number 1 overall pick. The NFL insiders discuss what he could bring to Cincinnati. Here's some of the upcoming dates. As Jeff mentioned, March 16th is when the legal tampering period begins. March 18th, the new league year, free agency begin. And then, of course, April 23rd through the 25th, the NFL draft in Vegas on ESPN and ABC.
Yeah. Sandra's Claus. Well, Tom Brady has other ties to the Bay Area, guys, of course, not just his former backup, Jimmy Garoppolo. Peter, what do you think makes the most sense when you think about Tom Brady this season?
If I'm Tom Brady, and I'm not, clearly, I would really want to go play in San Francisco. Great defense, incredible coaching, young team, and they were a few passes away from being Super Bowl champions. You have to think, if you're Tom Brady, if I'm going to the West Coast, that's a more desirable place. But you've got to add in Tom Brady's life story. A lifelong 49ers fan. You go back through his childhood. This is a kid who was at the game, the catch. That's him at the catch. Remember, 1982.
Brady?
NFC Championship game. That is Brady at the game. And, of course, for Halloween, what did he go as a kid? He went as Joe Montana for Halloween. This is a lifelong 49ers fan. Grew up in the Bay Area. Wanted to be drafted by the 49ers. They passed on him for Gio Carmazzi out of Hofstra. Broke his heart. And now has spent 20 years in the NFL building a legacy in New England. It makes a lot of sense for Tom Brady to want to go and follow in the steps of his legend, Joe Montana, where he was his father and him season ticket holders his entire childhood. But if I look at the 49ers, I'm not sure it makes sense for them. And that's where this gets interesting. How could you say no to Tom Brady? Well, Kyle Shanahan's offense is kind of predicated on a lot of rollouts, a lot of play action, a lot of stuff outside the pocket. If you were to ask me for one game, who would I rather have in a Super Bowl, I'd probably say give me Brady over Garoppolo. But if I'm the 49ers, you got to think long and hard about this. Even if it's a possibility, even if there's speculation, I don't care if Tom Brady comes begging. you've got to think about the future. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a better person to have in that building for the next 10 years, next 5 years, than Tom Brady, even for the next 1 or 2. And I think this team is built to last. I would actually say I'd rather have Garoppolo than Brady for the long term.
I hear you on that, and I agree with you. I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo is the answer for the next decade or so. I mean, they definitely paid him for that. When it comes to Tom Brady playing for a year, I might take Tom Brady on every team for the next year. I mean, he's still good. He still can make every throw in the book. He's going to stick in the pocket and make throws that maybe Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't make in the Super Bowl. But when it comes to making sense, yeah, it makes football sense, but it doesn't make common sense. The most common sense place for Tom Brady to land is back in New England. Tom Brady is a legend there, and I keep bringing up situations of players that have left their teams and have left their legacies. I bring up Michael Jordan when he left the Bulls and went to the Wizards. Even though he averaged 22 points, the team surrounding him, they weren't good enough. We're talking face maskless Rip Hamilton, Strags, I know you like that, and a young Kwame Brown. Roger Clemens, when he left, it took him 2 stops to go win a World Series. I mean, this happens more times than not. Even Peyton Manning had an unbelievable record-breaking year when he left the Colts. They didn't win a Super Bowl that season. So for me, going elsewhere, the grass is not always greener. If you think about the situation they're in, they have talent. Julian Edelman will forever be Tom Brady's best friend on the field. N'Keal Harry is still learning the ins and outs. They brought in Sanu. They still have a host of running backs. How about instead of trying to figure out what you're going to do with that first-round draft pick, you go get a wide receiver because this NFL draft is so deep with wide receivers.
The question was, where should Brady want to go? He was miserable in New England.
He should want to go back where his bread is buttered. Because why would you go elsewhere where the system might not fit you, the players might not fit your skill set, and you go where you're beloved, and that is New England.
Yeah, and guys, I think if Josh McDaniels had gotten a head coaching job this cycle, I could say, oh, well, maybe he could team up with McDaniels. That's his guy. He knows him better than anyone. Everything would be new. Even if you go with your buddy Mike Vrabel, everything offensively there is new to you.
Exactly.
So I'm with you, and I've been with you, but I sometimes waver a little bit because of these reports we hear of everyone, including the Giants. We know that ain't happening. How's that? We know that one's not a go. That one is not a go. Guys, let's stick with the quarterbacks, but look beyond free agency. Which quarterback with an uncertain future do you guys think is most intriguing this offseason?
I'll say Jameis Winston. And I remember during the season, I said, Jameis is balling, and Peter Strager almost slapped the coffee right out my hands. But he was. It's just that simultaneously, he was also throwing interceptions. And I get it. Listen, people will forever talk about the 30 for 30 like it's an ESPN documentary. But I want to talk about 2020. And I'm not just talking about the year we're in. I'm also talking about his vision. Because Jameis Winston, reports are that he got LASIK surgery. That means he's going to see a little bit better. We've seen the images and the still shots of him squinting on the sidelines. Listen, just speaking from firsthand perspective, I know what it's like to get glasses when you didn't think you need them. Things are a little bit clearer. And then on top of that, he fixed his thumb in his throwing hand. So Jameis Winston, I guarantee wherever he lands, he will be a better quarterback. And I saw that game at the end of the season where they played the Houston Texans at home. I was there in the building.
First pass was a pick six.
Yes, it was.
First pass was a pick six.
Right?
First pass is a pick six.
So what did you see?
What were you thinking then?
In the last,
what did you see in that moment? First pass, a pick six.
In the last pass of his season was a pick six, right? Am I correct in that? I was thinking, no way, not again. But I will say this. The passes weren't thrown to the wrong receiver. They were just slightly off. So I feel like with that hand and with his eyes being fixed, that slightly off could be right on target, and he'll have an unbelievable year.
I love that glass half full answer. I love it. I love it, Nate.
Say Tampa doesn't re-sign him. They don't franchise him.
Right.
Do you think Jameis Winston is a starting quarterback in the NFL next season?
I don't think he's going to come in being handed the keys of any organization. I do feel like he'll come in and have to compete and prove that he's better than whoever's there. The question is, what team has a quarterback that they would allow somebody to come in and challenge him? Are we thinking like a Chicago Bears? Where Mitchell Trubisky needs to be pushed?
Sure.
There needs to be a quarterback that we're not quite sure of that needs that push. And you're okay if he loses his position.
I look at Teddy Bridgewater, who to me is the complete opposite, the polar opposite of Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is this big-armed guy who's going to throw a lot of interceptions. He's going to win you some games, but he's also going to hurt you at times. Teddy might not have the arm or the cannon of Winston, but he just wins games. And it's a lot of ball control, but it's also a lot of leadership. And if I'm Tampa Bay specifically, if Jameis walks out that door, I'm really intrigued by Teddy, because what Teddy brings is a maturity, a leadership, and a ability to run your team where you're not going to lose games because of Teddy Bridgewater. He went 5-0 last year, for the New Orleans Saints. And of course, now everyone's saying, is he a starter? Is he a backup? Is he a top 10 quarterback? I believe Teddy Bridgewater deserves a chance to start in this NFL again, and I think Tampa Bay would actually make a lot of sense if they move on from Jameis.
I think we all want him to get that chance after being finally healthy and everything from that horrific injury.
Yeah, right.
Guys, selfishly, I'm taking Phillip Rivers.
Go for it.
Eli's coaching his daughter Ava's basketball team, or helping to, as he told us. We know that Ben's coming off elbow surgery. For